Many times you don't need cash and you almost never need credit to purchase land this way. I'm talking about buying land that's available in all 50 states. After you watch this video, you're going to be equipped with the knowledge, the tools, and the information necessary to find, negotiate, and buy a piece of land. The exciting thing is, you never need a bank. You see, there are people that own land outright and clear, and some of them even have a loan on their property, but they're willing to sell you their land on their terms. Oftentimes they'll pay off their land and sell it on their terms. Their terms can often be your terms. And listen, there's no tax return check, no job history check, no credit check. Oftentimes you just have to write a small check for that piece of land and everything gets transferred into your name. And yes, it's your land. You can do anything you want to it. You can build on it, you can subdivide it, you can do whatever you want. However, you got to make sure of a couple of things before you buy that land. For one, how do you find the land? There's websites, there's Craigslist, there's Facebook, there's listings on real estate company sites, real estate agent sites. Oftentimes, a piece of land may not be promoted or advertised as owner's terms, but you have to look for those properties that have been on the market for, say, 120 to 180 days. After anything has been on the market for 6 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, the seller's typically open to a little bit more negotiation, a little bit more terms, and quite simply, the answer is always no unless you ask. So if it's listed for sale by owner, or if it's listed for sale owner's terms, then you want to ask the question, what are the terms? What does the seller actually want for that property? Oftentimes it doesn't take you a whole lot of money or cash out of pocket. If you have cash, that's great. You can put the cash down. If you don't have cash, you can negotiate with the seller to say, hey, I don't have a whole lot of cash out of pocket, but why don't I do this? Why don't I offer you a little bit more for the property than what you're asking? Or why don't I give you a little bit more interest on the money that you're actually loaning me? You see, they're not loaning you money per se, but you're paying them payments for the property. That asset, that piece of land, say they're selling it to you for $50,000, they're going to put that on terms. And those terms are typically amortized over 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's all negotiable, right? And when they negotiate that and you have a term limit, you also have an interest rate. Now listen, you don't always have to have an interest rate. It's totally up to the seller and you, the buyer. Don't get bogged down or so clogged up or so fog-brained because everything else in the world is dealing with banks and real estate brokers and title companies and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, you got to look and find you a piece of property. You can drive around. There's an app that I use personally. It's called Land Glide. That Land Glide app, I'll put a link below that you can click on and physically drive around, allow it to find your location on your phone, and you can see who owns those individual properties. At that point, you can go to the city or the county tax assessor's office and you can find and pull their information. Then you can go to websites like Spokeo, Spokeo.com, and you can search and they'll give you, listen, for $25 a month, you'd be amazed at the information you could find on somebody. At the end of the day, what you're trying to do is to reach out to that person if you don't have their information, if their property's not listed with a real estate broker, so you can find out if they're willing to sell the property. You'd be amazed at the property that gets transferred, sold, purchased, and bought in the United States, and it's not even on the market for sale. Now, if you find a piece of property that you like, you talk to the owner and you want to negotiate the offer, you can ask them if they want to sell the property, or maybe it's listed for sale and you can say, how much are you willing to sell me their property for? There's also going to be those terms that are going to be an interest rate, typically an amortization, as I touched on. However, that amortization, many times there's what they call a call date. And a call date is where they say, I'll amortize it over 15 years to keep your payment low. And when you keep your payment low, you're also paying more on interest and less towards principal balance. Now there's also what they call a call date. Now the call date can be written in the contract. Not all contracts, but this is why it's important to read the fine print. And when in doubt, have a good, seasoned, reputable real estate broker look it over. They'll charge you a minimum fee to do that, or take the information to a title company. Have the title company look over all the information. A closing attorney title company can close the transaction, write you a title policy, and give you all this information that you need. That way you know it's done legitimately. The last thing you ever want to do is to buy a piece of property on a handshake or just a little piece of written paper. When you buy a piece of land, it has to be recorded, and you do that legally. Now, there's also a lot of things that you can really get hung up on, and that's looking at a property and getting caught emotionally to buy that property. You get excited, you're ready to move on it, you want to do what you want to do, and it's a piece of land, it's yours, you buy it. The worst thing you can do is do that, because you have to do your research. You have to know the deed restrictions on that property, what can be put on it, what can be built on it. Will they allow single wides, double wides? What's the minimum building restrictions? Regardless of what the seller may say, you've got to make sure you get that and have it in writing. You also want a copy of the survey. That way you can walk the land. Don't just walk the land during the daylight when it's a beautiful day. Get out there when it's absolutely just raining or it's been raining and walk every square inch of it. If you have to, try to find the pins. If you can't find the pins, oftentimes you can use a metal detector. There's still rods driven into the ground. But you want to know what you can build on it from deed restrictions, not just for the actual property itself, but for the city and county. So you look at the city and county deed restrictions, go to the Register of Deeds office, they'll pull the plat, they'll show you about the property and tell you everything that's connected with that property. Now, a lot of those connections are gas, electric, water, sewer. Is it on city sewer? Is it on city water? Is there a septic tank on the property currently? Has there ever been one? The permitting office, the environmental office, all of these places you can visit. And listen, it's important to know that you can contract the land, but just make it contingent upon those items through your due diligence period. Many times a contract and offer to purchase on a piece of property, land, has a 10 to a 14, 15-day due diligence period of which you can secure the land and then go do those items. But you need to know, is electric service available, for example? Or is it 400 yards away, which is going to cost you $40,000 just to get electricity on the property? Those are the little nuances. The last thing you want to do is buy a piece of property and you can't do what you want to do on it. But what about flood zones? Is it on a busy highway? Is there a school that's going in? What is it zoned? Those are the things that you need to know, because you need to know, is it zoned commercially? Is your property zoned commercially? How about the neighboring property? Is it zoned commercially? And listen, what's really nice is when you go to the tax assessor's office, they pull the deeds, you can see the plat maps. They'll also show you and tell you who owns the neighboring properties. And one thing that you can do that I always suggest to people is, it's not a bad idea to reach out to those folks and ask them what they thought about the property. What flood zone is the property in? Walk that property. If it's in A, B, or C flood zones. Oftentimes those flood zones, if it's in A flood zone, you're going to pay a lot for flood insurance depending on the elevation. B, you're going to pay a little less. A flood zone means that if you build a house and you get a loan, the mortgage company is going to require flood insurance, because that's in a heavy flooded area that will flood eventually. B is a little less. C is even less than B, and then you have X. But all of those are actually flood zones. It's just less of the flood rating. And once you're in flood zone C or flood zone X, and flood zone B even, it's not required by the lender that you have to have flood insurance. So those are the things that you have to think of when it comes to buying a piece of land, because I always tell people you always have to consider resale. Now, one thing that's not a bad idea is to ask the homeowner, the property owner, the landowner, the seller, if you will, why they're selling the property. Why are they wanting to sell the property if it's been on the market for 6 months, or if it hasn't been on the market, ask them their history of the land. Did they inherit it? Is it an estate sale? Did they buy the land? How long have they owned the land? Oftentimes, just finding out information about a piece of property can give you a little bit of leverage when it comes to negotiating the best offer for you. And one of the most important things that you always want to ask is, do they have the mineral rights to the property? Just because somebody owns a piece of property and they're selling it to you, that doesn't mean they have the water and the mineral rights to that land. You want to make sure that they can convey that to you. In other words, when they bought that land, did they receive the mineral and the water rights, and are they willing to sell those rights to you? You don't have to pay for it. It's just in the purchase of the land. But oftentimes when you're in states like Southern Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, even up into Ohio, Pennsylvania, there's oil in a lot of this land, and they certainly are apprehensive sometimes to transfer the mineral rights to you. So you always want to make sure you get your mineral rights when you buy a piece of property. Listen, I hope you learned something from this video. I'm Wayne Turner. I've been in the real estate business for 30 years. I've helped thousands of people, and I just impress this upon you so you can have the confidence and the comfort knowing that what you learn from me is from actual tried and true experience. So give me a thumbs up. Hope you liked the video. Subscribe to the channel. Until next time, God bless.